what really appealed to me was the freedom, the freedom to be able to practice in a way that I wanted to practice. Having experience in large systems, health systems, and also in smaller ones as well, in small clinics, I really was like realizing that I wanted to have that ability to have the time with people that is precious. And so what appealed to me is once I got into and understanding it more, is that the way it's set up is that we could have that initial visit and have that time that you don't see in other health care systems, whether large or small. The time is precious. That's the biggest thing for me.
Well, welcome to Take Charge with HELPcare. Glad to have Stephanie Kimmis joining us today. Stephanie is our first practitioner other than Dr. Dave Strobel, who joined us, and she joined us back in May of 2022. And so, Dan, we're looking forward to talking today, getting to know Stephanie a little bit more. And you had some questions that you wanted to talk through with her. So get started, and I'll chime in and sing harmony, I guess, once in a while.
Okay, great. It's nice to be with you today, Stephanie.
Yeah, same. How are you?
So why don't you just start today by telling us a little bit about your background and history. Where did you grow up? Where did you, get your education? Anything you want to share about family?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm from a small town, South Dakota. And I grew up on a farm. As soon as I was able, I got out of a small town, but I did get my nursing degree in South Dakota at South Dakota State University. And that was my bachelor's of nursing at that time. And then I proceeded to work in Minneapolis. And I started out at Children's of Minnesota in Minneapolis in pediatrics as a pediatric RN. That is my first love, is pediatrics. And so I really, really enjoyed that. I didn't stay there long, though. I was kind of in adventure mode. And what I did was I did some travel nursing, which I don't know if you know what that is, but is you take assignments throughout the United States and, take assignments that are usually about 3 months long or so, and you support hospital environments that are struggling with staffing and so on. And so I did that for a time, and then I came back to work at Children's Hospital again. And then since that time, I had worked in different environments. I worked in hospital, in clinic, in home care environments for pediatrics. So a little bit of everything there. Then, in my experiences with working in pediatrics as a nurse practitioner, I got my degree as a pediatric nurse practitioner, University of Minnesota Twin Cities. Once I graduated from there, I proceeded to work in a school-based setting in the east side of St. Paul for underserved children. So it was a great way to get into the community and to be a resource for kids who are underserved. So from there, I did different things within as a pediatric nurse practitioner and decided to go back to school once again. And I was 50 at the time and got my family nurse practitioner degree here in Rochester at Winona State University at the Rochester campus. And so my desire to do that was to really take care of the parents of the children, because I felt that what was needed was support for the parents so they could be better parents, so they could get better care of their children. So I saw some unmet needs there, and that was my impetus for going back to school once again. So I think after this third schooling, I think I'm done. I think I'm good.
That's enough.
I don't think I'll be going back to school again to get my doctorate. I don't think that's needed. I have a master's and I'm happy where I'm at in the broad scope that I have now for family medicine. And my desire is, the women and children is my passion, but whole family care is, I think, really important to be able to learn the whole family's needs and support them all in that. family environment.
Great. Well, tell us then what attracted you to HELPcare. What drove you to make that transition to come to work?
Goodness, I've always been open to opportunities, I think that's why I've done so many different things. And plus, I'm kind of adventurous that way. And what really enticed me about HELPcare was, well, first off, I really didn't know what it was. I hadn't really been introduced to the direct primary care model per se before. So I had needed to kind of learn about it, but really it was a connection Lee and I had with someone we knew,
Yeah.
And my next
Well, I
door
can chime in
neighbor.
a little bit on that one because
Yeah, do please.
we were about 3 months
Yeah.
2 months into after we were opening. And my wife, Lisa, and I go to church over in Rochester. And one of our fellow congregation members, who we really hadn't talked to about this at all, she was coming in for the second service and we had gone to the first service. And Lisa was sitting by the door and Vicky came and said, well, how's the clinic going? Because you probably had seen it on Facebook and it wasn't like we were talking about it a lot at church or anything. And Lisa said, well, it's going really well. In fact, we're thinking we'd really like to get a female nurse practitioner if we can. And Vicky said, my next door neighbor is a great nurse practitioner. And of course, that was Stephanie. Now, she got us introduced. And when we talked to Stephanie, she said, well, Vicky doesn't know whether I'm a great nurse practitioner or not. She knows I'm a good neighbor.
Yeah.
Turns out she is a great nurse practitioner.
Thanks,
and
Lee.
we've gotten, she's been a great partner with Dr. Strobel in getting started with it because we were always a little bit wondering, how are we going to make this work? Like, how do you go from one practitioner to two? Like when you're kind of trying to steadily grow the practice, like when do you get big enough that you could use a second practitioner? Well, as it turned out, Stephanie was able to do a day or two a week with us to start out, which enabled us to gradually work her, into the practice. And she's coming up on her 3rd anniversary.
Yeah,
Of working with us,
totally.
which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. So, it was kind of fun. Yeah.
What was it about the direct primary care model that attracted you?
Yeah, is so as I got into it, and after that initial meeting, and just realizing, I think this is something I'd like to try out. And again, I started it like one day a week for starters. And what really appealed to me was the freedom, the freedom to be able to practice in a way that I wanted to practice. Having experience in large, systems, health systems, and also in smaller ones as well, in small clinics, I really was like realizing that I wanted to have that ability to have the time with people that is precious. And so what appealed to me is once I got into and understanding it more, is that the way it's set up is that we could have that initial visit and have that time that you don't see in other health care systems, whether large or small. The time is precious. That's the biggest thing for me. And then not only that is having the ability to practice in a way that I want to practice. In some ways, I feel like I wasn't made to fit the mold of traditional, and I kind of realized that finally over time, that is the case. I fit into this mold really well, I feel. And I hope that Lee feels the same way.
The mold, right? Like you kind of get to help create the mold.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's true. That's true. So where the mold here is more flexible, and you can create what you want out of it. And I love that. I love that freedom.
So I love how you say time is precious. And then also how you say you could practice medicine the way you really want to. So how would you define the way you really want to? What is the important thing you have the freedom to do?
Yeah. So there's a time aspect, right? There is the ability to practice in ways that are variety of ways, like as in the settings, like in person, telephone, video options, the ability to bring in other family members as appropriate. I practice by my faith, my Christian faith, and if the opportunity presents itself, I am able to share things that can perhaps help them in their faith journey. That is, I can pray with them if they feel that is something they want. And I'm not limited in that ability, where before I felt like, that was no way that was going to happen. And so that has really been something that has been well received for those who wish to have that opportunity. And I think that's just a whole nother level of art of what we do and special about what we do.
Beautiful explanation. So you find real satisfaction in combining some faith with some medicine.
Yes, I do. I do. And I think that, God has put me in this place to do his work. And I feel like that is something that's really precious to me. And any way I can reach people at a spiritual level too, I think that is that really sustains me as well. Other things that kind of, I find that are really satisfying is the people that I work with, I feel like everyone's on that same journey to express that compassion and passion about what they do. And that's represented in the quality of, I feel, my coworkers and, my fellow practitioners and the nursing staff and the reception staff and everyone we work with we all have that compassion and passion for people that I think that once you enter our space, you realize that right on the outset, from that person who checks you in and gets to know your name, it's personalized,
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'd stress too is that we take all comers. Like,
Yes.
it isn't like
Yes,
there's any
indeed.
discrimination against anybody with a
No.
different faith or no faith. It's all, but from our perspective, we're wanting to live out our faith,
Yes.
and part of that is loving and serving our neighbors. Like that's what the gospel's all about.
So how does your belief and compassion towards people translate into the actual medical care you provide?
Yeah, so I feel that shows and just my openness and ability to listen. I think a lot of what is missing in healthcare today is the ability to listen and have the time to listen to people's stories. So much of what we are able to capture with the time that we have and our compassion is to listen to those stories and be able to find those missing pieces, I guess, and to support those. And I think it provides a very comprehensive assessment of where people are at. And in so doing, we're able to identify and emphasize those important pieces that they bring to the visit and provide those interventions that we feel, as a partnership with the patient to be able to give them. I'm always asking, what are your health goals? What do you want out of this visit? And I kind of chuckle because the response I get, they kind of look at me sometimes like, what? What are you
I
asking?
didn't know I could.
Yeah, I didn't know I had, an option to tell you what I would like. So I think
I just gotta take a minute to brag a little bit on
Sure.
Stephanie because of some feedback that we just got recently that I think really exemplifies the relationship that we have with members and the ability to really take time to get to know them. And because we don't have a panel size of 3,000 or 4,000 patients per practitioner, really being able to take the time to get to know them. So I got a call from an insurance agent who had talked to the company owner of one of the member companies that has a plan that includes HELPcare Clinic membership. And this broker told me, when I get a call from this guy, because I deal with his other insurance, he's never calling with happy stuff. It's always, and anyway, he said he had called at 9:00 one night. It was maybe like on a Monday night and said, I just got to give you some feedback. He told the story about how he had gone to our Rochester clinic, and not he, but someone among his employees had gone to a Rochester clinic where Stephanie is the practitioner. And he said, their young son was sick and they were really concerned about him. And she stayed late and took lots of time with him. And then later that night called and said, "So how's he doing?" And then the next morning called and said, "So how's he doing?" That's the kind of thing that just doesn't happen in, kind of big box medicine, typically, that's not, they're not set up to be able to do that. Where the thing that we're focusing on with HELPcare Clinic is having a relationship. And when you have a relationship, you care about people. And Stephanie's is just a great recent example.
Well, thanks, Lee. I'm glad they were happy with that, and that we could, kind of show that he has some positive things to tell his insurance broker. So
Yeah,
that's good.
and what the broker was telling me is like the word was just spreading like wildfire in the workplace there, where people were saying, "Wow, can you believe that's what that experience is like?" So thanks for,
Good.
and this is feedback that we just happen to get. It's the kind of experience that I think all of our practitioners are trying to create, all the time.
I love that.
Great story. Yeah, it's a great story and says a lot about you, Stephanie, and also about the whole focus of the practice, as you've already talked about. There's a united approach to compassionate care for patients and their
Yeah. The
circumstances.
relationship based, we want to get to know you, we want to get to know, each member at a level where, they feel like they can trust us, and that building that trust doesn't always start on that first visit. It can, and I'm happy when it does, because that just sets the stage for just, great care, in my opinion. And, I'm honored to be a part of their lives. I am honored.
What advice would you give to someone else who might be considering or wanting to work in a situation like you're in with direct primary care?
I think if someone was interested in this, and like I was, wasn't really sure what it was, I think that a great way to check us out is to look at the online kind of resources and career resource page on our website, healthcare.health, and take a look at the different offerings we have on our website to understand kind of what we're about, because you may not be familiar with this kind of practice model. But if you are, and you've kind of researched some things and you want to check us out, I think we're more than willing to have them check us out and shadow us and so on. I think that our model of care are for those people like me who maybe don't fit the prescribed mold of the larger, kinds of health systems. And you have a compassion for what you do and passion for what you do. Those are essential for any one who wants to practice in a way that is satisfying to them, that they have the time, the support, and the resources to practice in a way that they want to practice in, and not in what's prescribed or in a mold found elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of saying it. And I was going to mention, because you talked about practicing the way that you want to practice, and really our goal with HELPcare LLC, which is the management services company that manages HELPcare Clinic. What we're here to do is to try to help people who are interested in practicing medicine the way they'd like to practice, and putting them in a place where they can do that. Providing the support and the resources, helping generate the memberships and all that, so that they can have this kind of practice model. And really having
do it without
flexibility within our overall basic framework is we want to deal with underlying causes. We want to be your guide and not the dictator of what your treatment's going to be, but really helping the members take charge of their own health, and giving them the resources to do that. And just delighted to have Stephanie and Elizabeth and Danae joining with Dr. Strobel to be doing this here and now. But if others are interested in this kind of approach, we'd love to have a conversation with you. So as Stephanie mentioned, go to our healthcare.health/healthcare careers page. It's right listed off the front of our website. Can kind of see a video of how we work and some of the core things that we practice. But then just reach out, and we'd love to I would have a first conversation, but then as people are interested in exploring it further, do some shadowing with our practitioners to see, is this for me? Is this what I'd like to do? And our goal is to help them be able to start their own practices, whether they work with the Austin Rochester group that we currently have, or if they're in some other location and would like to have their own practice. We're here to help make that happen if we can.
We couldn't do it without you, Lee.
That's great.
Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a comment or a review, and to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube. And also to share Take Charge with HELPcare with your friends and on your social media channels. At HELPcare, our passion is helping people take charge of their health and their health care, helping employers take charge of their health plan expenses, and helping physicians and other practitioners take charge of their healthcare careers. Learn more about the healthcare clinic difference at healthcare.health.